Hey everyone, it's Retro DM Ray. Hey, I'm back with you on the channel for another video. What I'm going to talk about today is more of this cool product from Free League called Forbidden Lands. Specifically, I'm going to cover just a little beginning information from the player's handbook. First of all, again, you'll see this really cool old school line art map. Again, this is artwork from Niels Gulliksen and others here that are in the game system itself as creators. The main illustrator is him. Of course, lead designer is Thomas Harnstam, and others that you see listed on the page here. It was copyright 2019, printed in Latvia. You see the table of contents here. And you'll notice that in this particular game, you have your adventurer, you have skills, you have talents. There's a combat and damage section, there's a magic section, there's a section on journeys, and a section on the stronghold, as well as gear and critical injuries. The reason why I mention that is because, as I said in the last video, this is OSR. Okay, now let me stop for a second and say OSR means different things to different people. It could mean that OSR is a particular game system. So OD&D, BX, BECME, Rule Cyclopedia, which is a combination of all of the BECME system into one resource. It could be AD&D First Edition, AD&D Second Edition. So that could mean that for you. It could also mean OSR is a way in which you do a particular mechanic. So, for example, Dungeons and Dragons using all of the polyhedral dice, excluding those that are used for DCC, for example. But you would use a D20, D12, D10s, D8s, D6s, and D4s. Maybe that for you is what you think of when you think of OSR. Also, OSR could mean a particular style of play, or maybe a particular look to a piece of material that you're using for play, or a combination of those two. Now, for me, when I say OSR, I mean a style of play and a look to the material kind of combined together. So when I see art like this map, that makes me think old school. When I see art like this right here, that makes me think old school. Okay, so that art evokes OSR to me. Also, for me, OSR is style of play. All right, so I'm going to read you something about Forbidden Lands that will kind of help you understand what in particular I mean about OSR and how this evokes that for me. Okay, so first of all, this section here, actually, if we go back, so in exploring the world, and what do you do? Okay, so the demonic blood mist, which is a thing here that was going on in the Forbidden Lands, that covered the land for 3 centuries, draining the life out of anyone who dared to wander too far from their village, has suddenly and inexplicably lifted. You and other restless souls like you are finally free to leave your homes and travel far and wide in the Forbidden Lands, looking for treasures and adventures. To explore the Forbidden Lands, you will use the big map in the box. It's divided into 10 different types of terrains and has a hexagonal grid that will help you navigate through the wilderness. How all this works is described in Chapter 7. All the tools you need to create exciting adventures along the way for your adventurers are available in the Game Master's Guide. Okay, so then when your game begins, uncovering the secrets of the land, your adventurers don't know much more than you do as players. The blood mist covered the land for centuries. Contact between the different regions of the Forbidden Lands has been sporadic. The history of the land has been forgotten or become myth. During the course of the game, you will discover the history and secrets of the Forbidden Lands piece by piece. This happens through so-called legends, short stories about a place, a person, or an artifact. The GM will give you these legends in the form of handouts. Some such handouts are collected at the back of the Game Master's Guide, and more are available as free for download from the Free League website. By collecting the legends, you'll be able to piece together the history of the Forbidden Lands. So, this game is a sandbox hex crawling game. How we played when we played back in the day in BECME and in BX, we would decide where it is we wanted to go. Our dungeon master would give us a series of rumors, legends, whichever word you want to use for that, and we would go and follow up on those as we saw fit. Travel to those destinations, having random encounters and random events occur along the way. We would then arrive there in whole or in parts, depending on how bad those random encounters were, because nothing was balanced. Okay, we would arrive there, and then we would explore around that particular destination. We might have to come and go multiple times. If you look at the beginning of the BECME basic book, you will very much see that basic introductory adventure of teaching you how to play very much is that, where they go and they crawl along and they get to this old ruin and they go in there and they might have to get a few things and run and come back. The story of Bargle as it's played out kind of in there is kind of how that particular thing works. So that's what evokes this feel for me here is you just plop your players that you created down into the wilderness when you first start, and then you just carry on from there as your players want to, going off and adventuring and sandbox crawling around in this world, and the story comes out of what you make of it as you play along, as you keep notes or journal about that, or however you do that as a game master and as a group of players. You're developing the story as you go along. There are some pieces that are in play which you can use or not use, and it's entirely up to you. All right. So as far as pieces that are in play, there is a solid, I would say, a partially solid history of the Forbidden Lands, and you can use that or interchange that as much as you want. So I'm going to read that for you now, just to kind of give you that feeling. Did you hear the story of the Forbidden Lands? Beyond the mountains, beyond the mists of the north, once it was called the Raven Land, our promised land. These days, strange creatures haunt those valleys, beasts that should not be, for the land is cursed. Once, Zygofer the Spellbinder was one of us, leading the passage through the mountains into the new land. But when faced by the savage orcs, he opened dark gates to seek the help of demons. That was his undoing. Zygofer turned on us and placed himself on the throne of the Ravenland, his daughter Thorania by his side. To keep their vile corruption from spreading, our wise king built a great wall across the mountain pass and forbade all to ever speak of what had happened. Since then, the Spellbinder's domain is known as the Forbidden Lands. To this day, the Demon King and his daughter still rule there, using the feared Brust brothers and the demonic blood mist sucking the life out of anyone who dared stray too far from their hearth. Zygofer and Thorania have kept the human folks who still live north of the wall under their heel. Yet not all is lost, for now the blood mist has lifted, and there are those who defy the Demon King and his daughter, adventurers, treasure hunters, scoundrels, not heroes, far from it, but men and women who dare travel the land as they choose and make their own mark on it, unbound by any fate or story set for them. They hunt for ancient treasures. They fight whomsoever gets in their way. They build a new world for themselves on the ruins of the old. They are the raiders of the Forbidden Lands. So it says you will wander the wildlands, discover lost tombs, fight monsters, and if you live long enough, build your own stronghold to defend. During your adventures, you'll uncover the dark secrets and the dark powers lurking in the shadows, and in the end, you can be the ones to decide the fate of the Forbidden Lands. And the reason why I say that that's really cool right there, that is because you have a map and it's double-sided, and you get a sticker pack in the box, which I showed you in that unboxing video a little bit, and you place those stickers as your players discover them. You place them on the map. Now we use little Yahtzee dice, little tiny poker chits that we can place them on and flip them back and forth so we can reuse them. But they're places that you have discovered as you've gone along. There's nothing set that you have to do. You set it as you're playing. I really, really like that. And then if you did put the stickers, you could flip it over and have new stickers that you could put on the other side. Or flip it over and use different stickers for that side than you did on the front side. For example, if you didn't want to place the stickers and you wanted to put them on something that was movable or removable, then once you've placed them and you've played your entire campaign on one side of the map, take a shot of that or a screenshot of that and save that off. mark that in your journal as the completed campaign number 1 or whatever. Flip the map over and take all those things away and start all over again, and maybe in a different random place, and start adventuring from there, and things will turn out entirely differently. I really, really like that. In that respect, I guess it's a little bit like a board game too. If it's a protracted kind of a board game where it's not fixed as to how you start and how you end, of course. Um, so I really, really enjoy that part of Forbidden Lands, and I have to say that when they started out to make this OSR, they really did a good job. From what I understand from Thomas Harnstam and his interview on Victory Condition Gaming, which you should check out. Some of their free league videos are really cool. But um, from his interview, he said they very much wanted to evoke that old school feel and style of play, and that's why they got a 1980s gaming artist. That's a historical thing for the gaming folks in Sweden to actually use to do a lot, if not all, of the artwork in this particular material. And I think it very much evokes that feeling for you very well. So that was their primary reason for how to put this together. So you're going to be discovering adventure sites. You could be searching around for these 4 elven gemstones if you wanted to pick up the Raven's Purge campaign book, which I do have. But again, it's not a linear story, as it says. It doesn't have a set goal for your adventures that you're expected to follow. It's just a rich tapestry of legends, locations, characters, and events that you can interact with in a multitude of ways. So use them or not, it's entirely up to you. And I really like that. That piece by piece, use what you want, throw out what you don't kind of approach to gaming. That's old school for me. And additionally, old school is this section on the top of page 7. If your characters make it back from the ancient ruins alive, they'll hopefully bring gold and other treasures with them. Eventually, you might feel the need to spend that treasure on something lasting, a stronghold of your own. Having conquered an old castle or a dungeon, your characters can turn into a stronghold. Using fast and effective rules found in Chapter 8 of this book, you can develop your stronghold, adding functions such as a forge, a mill, or ramparts. You can also hire NPCs to staff the stronghold when you're out on another adventure. The stronghold is a place to rest between adventurers and safe haven against the beasts that ravage the land. However, the stronghold needs upkeep, and it might also invite the attention of others looking to steal your riches. So that's incredibly cool too, because again, back in old school, that's what we did. You eventually adventured to the point to where you're going to develop or take over or fix up a ruined stronghold of some kind, and that's going to be like your base of operations in the area in which you kind of reside. And then you go out and adventure from that safe haven and come back and forth. And of course, you'll have to stock it. Of course, you'll have to defend it and constantly work on upkeeping and updating it. And then eventually that'll get bigger and bigger. Maybe people decide to move around to live around you. A village or a hamlet or whatever will spring up around you, and you'll have to do more and more, and that'll become more and more a part of who you are. And eventually you'll become like a lord or a lady of that land or something similar to that. Certainly, the old game had titles for your adventurer, and those were used as you went up in level as points of importance for your character that lent the idea that you would eventually have that stronghold. Eventually, you would retire your characters in that particular way. Okay, so I think that all of this says OSR to me. All right, so I just wanted to make that clarification because I keep saying OSR about a bunch of different things, and that's really what I mean. Because I came from the world of Back Me BX First Edition, Advanced D&D Second Edition, that world, and now stepping into this new system, these new mechanics in this new world, I just think it's really, really cool to understand what it is I mean by what I say with that OSR word. All right. Also, this section here on rolling dice. So this system is a D6 dice pool system. All right. But it does use D3. If you have DCC dice and you have a D3, great. That's what we do. It's easy to use. But if you don't, you could just use a D6, and 1 to 2 is 1, 3 to 4 is 2, and 5 to 6 is 3. Or do like to say here, roll a D6, divide the result by 2, and round up. They also use multiple D6s, and they use a D66 on their tables instead of a D100 table, where the first D6 is a 10s and the second one is a 1s. And That's the basics of the rolling of the dice as far as what the dice consist of. You'll also eventually be able to graduate to, with artifacts and things of that nature in the system, you would eventually get to move up to a D8, a D10, and even a D12 at its most. That's why you see those pictured there. Artifacts will be able to do that for you, and resources that you have rely on dice. And I'll explain that later, probably in another video. That I think is another cool mechanic for this survival hex crawl kind of a game. All right. You can also have custom cards. They're available as a unique deck of cards that are sold separately by Free League for describing powerful artifacts and mounts and initiative and maneuvers in close combat. We don't use those. We just use playing cards numbered 1 through 10 to draw for initiative. You could also just roll a d10 to determine initiative, and lowest is better. All right. So this next section is going to tell you about a typical game session. You could read that for yourself on page 12. And then this tells you, like a lot of these other types of games do, they tell you what a role-playing game is, in case you're unfamiliar with that. And then it immediately starts out talking about your adventurer. And it says this: you are no hero. You don't fight to protect the realm or to put the true king on the throne. You hunt through ancient ruins for treasure, and you help those who help you. You make your own mark on the Forbidden Lands. Your fate isn't determined for you by someone else. You choose your own path. You are an adventurer. The adventurer you play is called your player character, PC. They are a tool, your eyes and your ears in the game world. But your PC is also dependent on you making wise decisions and not putting them in harm's way. Take your PC seriously and play them as if they were an actual person. The game's more fun that way. At the same time, you shouldn't try to protect your PC from every single danger. Okay, again, that's old school. It says the point of the game is to create an exciting story, and for that to succeed, you have to take risks. I think D&D 5e and I think Pathfinder 2e lend itself to the fact that you can take risks, and there's no real risk in it because you can just save multiple times to keep from dying. Or in the Pathfinder 2e mechanics, again, you can just make rolls and not die. And in fact, there's mechanics in there that make it quite simple for you if you have any real creative playing at all, that you will just never die. So what it lends itself to is that you don't really have to worry about taking risks. You don't feel like there's even a risk in the game, and I would say that's true. I've played them both a lot. Whereas in this game, you can go down pretty quick. And if you play smart, maybe not so much. And that's old school. If you played smart, you didn't die as much. You didn't have a whole folder full of characters. Sometimes. Sometimes the dice just didn't go your way and you died anyway. But if you played smart, you didn't tend to die as often. And if you didn't, and you just ran around recklessly, of course, eventually all your characters are just gonna bite it. Okay. So during the course of the game, your PC is going to change and develop. You want to role play through that. You want to improve through experience, of course, but you also want to discover how your personality changes, and it's formed in a way that can't be measured just by numbers on a page. Now, I want to stop there. I've talked about this in my other videos. Playing numbers on the page, to me, that's a horrible way to play. If you like to play where numbers on the page are the thing that matters, go for it. If that makes it fun for you, go for it. I don't like to do that. I don't want to play the sheet. I want to play the character. I want to have the story. Okay. If that character dies, I still want to play the story. So I'm just going to make another one because I still want to see what's going to turn out in the story, and I want to continue to have that experience. And that's old school. You didn't expect that character was maybe going to live beyond adventure number 1, let alone adventure number 10 or 12 down the line. So it was the story and the play and the fun at the table with one another that really mattered. It wasn't the things that were written on the sheet. And in fact, in really old school, you didn't have hardly anything on the sheet anyway. Basic fantasy, same thing. You don't have much on the sheet to even rely on. But newer games have so much information on the sheet, and it makes you want to rely on that so much. I think it ruins the play. It certainly would ruin it for me and would cause me to not call it OSR, which it isn't, in my opinion. All right, so first things first here, when you're creating your adventurer, you're going to start out with kin. Um, that is Forbidden Lands' version of race. Okay, so from ordinary humans to horrifying demonic monstrosities, many different creatures live in the Forbidden Lands. There are 8 different kin you can choose from for your player character: human, elf, half-elf, dwarf, halfling, wolfkin, orc, and goblin. Humans are the most common kin, but you can choose freely. And then each kin is described, and your choice of kin affects your attributes, and every kin has a unique kin talent that no other kin can have. For each kin, typical professions are listed in that entry, but you're not strictly bound to follow these. There are always unique individuals who walk unusual paths in life. And then I like this right here on page 15. It gives you a section about how to create your player character. How you create your player character is explained in detail in this chapter. The summary below is a helpful overview. And then you follow these steps: choosing your kin, picking your profession, deciding your age, spending points on your attributes, spending points on your skills, choosing your starting talents, determining your pride, choosing a dark secret, defining your relationships to other player characters, picking your gear, deciding your appearance, and choosing your name. Now, notice, choosing your name is at the very end of the list. Okay, I think that's cool because you'll develop this whole entire thing. You'll develop this picture here before you then give the picture a name and a personality and start playing it. You're gonna build this picture first. It's not the other way around, where you're going to give it this wonderfully detailed name and multiple page backstory and all of these incredible details, and even make props in real life that point towards your character. If you play that way, that's fine. If that's fun for you, we don't do that. Um, I'm not into that at all, but some people are. But it's not like that in this game. You won't get to any detail like that until the very end when it says choose your name. Then you're going to maybe fill in that other stuff. And as a game master, for me, I don't need you to give me a multiple page backstory. You can give me one sentence and I'm good with that, or give me none, and that's fine too. And I'd prefer it that way. Just like the world, let's fill it in as we go along. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's a standard method for creating the character, which is quick and effective, about 15 to 30 minutes, and that's pretty accurate. Or you can spend more time using the alternate method described in the separate pamphlet that was in the box, The Legends and Adventurers, and this will give your character a deeper backstory from the start of the game. And trust me, you can either pick through that, or the more fun would be to roll on every single table one at a time and piece it together. Because then you're finding it out too as it goes along. You're not going through that huge development process. I also think that's old school to kind of roll on a lot of tables. Tables. I just think that's fun. All right, so then each kin has its own entry. There's humans, there's elves, there's half-elves. These are typical fantasy tropes, right? Dwarves, halflings. Okay? And if that doesn't remind you of a hobbit, I wouldn't know what would. Then there's wolfkin, very interesting. There's goblin that you can play, very interesting. Another version of a goblin riding on a wolf mount. Okay, there's orc as well. Orc is not pictured, but there's orc there, and you can play them. Okay, each one of these kin in the player's handbook have a unique bit of information about them that the players know. Okay, and this is another old school thing. If you read the first edition AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, Gary goes to great detail to tell you the players are not to read the Dungeon Master's Guide. That's the Dungeon Master's eyes only. The players are to look at the player's handbook. And there was intentionally not information put in the player's handbook that it was specifically the purview of the Dungeon Master to keep. And that's the same with this game. There's information that is specific only to the game master that is not in this player's handbook. And I think that's important. I think that matters. So information you have about the different kin here, there's enough information for you as a player to know whether you want to play it or not, and to see these entries about character creation to know whether you might want to play it or not. But it's not everything that there is, because again, you're going to find out all of that piece by piece, just like the history and the goings on in the world. You're going to find it out piece by piece. I think that's really, really cool. All right, and then I'm just flipping through for right now very quickly. I'll go into some more detail about them later in another video. These are your professions. You have druid, which druid is both a druid in the traditional sense of gaming, as well as it's the healer. kind of fulfilling both roles because there's no cleric. And then you have the fighter. You also have the hunter, which is similar to ranger. You have a minstrel, that's similar to bard, of course. Then you have a unique profession, peddler. Um, that's kind of the salesman, thieving type of traveling rogue merchant, if you will. Then there's a rider, so that's similar to a cavalier. And then there's the traditional rogue, a normal style thief that you would imagine, shadowy backstabber in that regard. Then there's sorcerer. Um, it combines aspects of what you would think of as sorcerer and wizard kind of combined together in one particular profession. Okay, so those are your professions to choose from. And I believe the Bitter Reach has some more. I don't have that yet. But those are your base professions. And again, I'll go into those in more detail later. But what I wanted to do in today's video is just kind of cover what I mean by OSR and let you take another look at this and another look at reading through some of this material to kind of give you an idea of how Forbidden Lands is structured, the feel of it, and how it might come about to play for you at your table, and invite you to join in and be a part of this Free League Forbidden Lands experience here. I want to again thank Free League for the review material here. They gave me PDFs to review. They are sending me the books. I don't have those yet, but I went ahead and purchased this on my own to get it quickly because it's just so really cool. But they are giving me review copies for this, as well as giving me review copies of the One Ring second edition, and I'm looking forward to covering that on the channel too. Um, that I really, really liking Free League stuff and the OSR style feel that is presenting. And I'm really looking forward to diving deep into all this stuff, talking about the kin and the professions and the mechanics and all the different things about Forbidden Lands, and then doing the same thing for the One Ring second edition as well, showing you some of that stuff on the table for you as we cover these things together. I just think that's going to be really cool, and I hope it's something that you're going to enjoy on the channel. If you do, you like this content, it's always G-rated, so please like and subscribe and share. That helps me a lot. I'm a little over 417 subscribers now as of the recording of this video, so I really appreciate all of you who've done that. I would ask you to continue to share, please. Trying to push towards that goal of 500, and that's my initial goal. Eventually, I want to get to that 1,000 so I can start really doing some super cool things for the channel. But I'm going to be covering a lot of this Free League stuff. Eventually, we're going forward. We're going to be looking at a lot more Free League games as well as I develop more of a relationship with them to do that on the channel. So I hope you're looking forward to that as well. And if this interests you, check them out. Free League Publishing. Check out their website and their merch store. It's really, really cool stuff. Check them out on DriveThruRPG. Again, you can follow my affiliate link on there to pick up some of these PDFs for yourself. And that gives me a little bit of a kickback. It's just cents, but that gives me a few cents to use on buying some other stuff. And I appreciate all of you on the channel that have already done that for me a couple of different times. I really appreciate that. Again, you can check out my Patreon. All these things are in links in the description of this video. And I hope you're liking this format. And I apologize if the sound is not fantastic. I'm trying out a new mic here, and I might have to try out another new one here soon. I don't know. We'll see. But let me know in the comments what you think about this video, or what you think about the sound quality, or anything else that's going on. I appreciate all the comments and try to respond back as quickly as possible. Again, if you put nasty stuff in the comments or whatever, I'm going to delete that. Anything that's not G-rated, I'm going to delete that. That's just the way I roll on my channel. But I appreciate that. I appreciate Thomas and Miss Bowl from the PR department of Free League, and all the other folks that have given me the opportunity to take a look at this stuff with you guys. Hope you're enjoying that. You should really go check them out. Check out Victory Condition Gaming. They have videos with interviews from different folks at Free League. Some cool interviews where they talk about all this stuff. It's really, really cool. So I hope you're looking forward to some more stuff coming here soon. Thanks again for checking it out. And as I always say, hey, enjoy your games at your table. And may all your rolls be nat 20s. And in this case, may all your rolls be 6s. All right. Take care. Later.